Welcome to part 3 of Big Sixes. So as I did with the second paint, I took a bit of time and had a look at what I've got. There's a lot going on, and I'm starting to think about the fact that they are sixes, that it isn't one big painting. So I decided to begin with smaller marks. Like, there's a lot going on, but I want each one individually to have its own composition. So that's what's in my head now as I start. I've brought out some smaller brushes and I've started to work a little bit smaller. And as I was looking at them, I was thinking about what I wanted to say on these pieces. And I do want them to be bright, but I want to balance that brightness. I often abstract nature. I abstract flowers and, well, lots of different things that I see in nature, color that I see in nature. But it can't just be brightness for me. I like to have the depth underneath as well. So that's what I'm really concentrating on and bringing balance to here. And as I said, I'm looking at 6 squares, but each one is individual to me at this point. And I'm liking at least 4 of them, and I'm very unsure about 2. So before I painted, I looked at them individually rather than looking at this as a whole. And I know that I need to simplify. There's a lot going on, so I need those smaller marks with smaller brushes, but at the same time, I need to be brave and let go of a lot of what I have, which is what you see me doing now. I'm getting rid of a lot that is already there because I know that if I have too much, you're not going to see anything. If it's screaming at you from every part of the painting, then it's hard for the eye to take it all in. So even if I'm using a bright color rather than a neutral, I'm still going to go a little bit more concentrated on some areas so that there's a much more of a focal point happening in each one of the squares. So you see me working with the fluoro pink there, but I'm starting to really block out big areas with that and pull the colors together on some of the different squares. You see me there putting in like a glaze, like an orangey glaze, to try and get a bit more cohesiveness in each square. It's getting to the point, it's getting quite close to the point of me needing to take the tape off to see what I've got, because I can now see enough, but not quite enough to know whether I'm there yet or not. So as I did with the fluoro pink, I've now chosen quite a nice neutral grey, and I'm getting rid of areas, giving myself some nice clean space in each of the squares, randomly, really, at this point, until I do the reveal. I won't really know, but I'm wanting to get a nice flow between all of them, but really now I'm thinking individually. So that's nice and opaque. I'm getting quite a nice lightness going on next to the brightness, which is important for me. And I think I'm loving, as I often do, the way that grey is relating to all the brighter colours. While I love the bright pinks and I love the bright oranges and even the greens, it's these neutral colours that really bring a painting home for me. So often in my later layers, I've got the neutrals out and I'm taking away rather than adding. So I'm really there. I think it's time to take the tape off. Now, when you are taking tape off, honestly, don't rush this process. There's nothing worse than spending all of this time on a painting only to have the paper rip at the last minute. So I have sped this up for you, but this process took a little bit of time for me because I didn't want any of that paper to rip. And when it comes to the tape and the paper, it's really the quality of the paper that will make the final result. So don't skimp on your paper. Make sure you've got a nice thick paper. Make sure it's a good brand like Arches or Fabriano, and you'll find you'll get a much, much better result. So there you go. There I've got my 6s, and I can see 4 squares already that I like. They may not be quite there, but I can see that my composition is getting close. So the 3 at the top of the screen, I'm pretty happy with, and that one there in the middle at the bottom. Those feel like they're close to completion. And there's the 2 on the bottom, left and right. Now, this one here, this is what happens sometimes in a painting process, and it's the reason why I paint a lot at once, is so that I don't do what you're going to see me do right here. Focus too much on one. So I spent, probably in this paint, I spent 3/4 of it on this bottom painting. It just wasn't working for me. So I threw everything at it. Instead of maybe just leaving it and moving on and getting the others completed, I just started obsessing over it. So you'll see me go to, okay, I'm just going to glaze over completely with pinks. And now I'm going to throw some orange at it. And it almost took me, I couldn't almost see anything but the square. And that happens. I'm sure that happens to you. And I hope it helps you to know that that happens to me too. And I'm sure it happens to a lot of artists. You just start obsessing when one isn't coming together. So, yeah. Eventually, I moved to the others. But I spent a good long while trying to save this one, trying to send it off into some different direction. And already it's not even looking like part of the same family. So if I could give you any piece of advice that I didn't follow myself in this paint, it was move around. Don't get too caught up on one of your 6s. Just start moving around to the others. So that colour there that I've mixed up, that light beigey colour, that's quite beautiful, and almost started to work on this one, but really I needed to put it onto the other squares. So while these ones are nearly there, they do just need a little bit of finessing. I wanted to just bring the composition together on them. So to highlight the areas that needed to be highlighted and to take away from the areas that were a little bit distracting in the composition. I like having a focal point, but I like bringing the color palette a little bit more together into some cohesion. It's a big color palette that I've used. There's a lot of colors, but I hope that when you see them in their final state, that you'll see that while they're bright, there is enough in there. There's enough depth from the amount of layers that we've put onto these. There's enough dark areas that balance the brighter areas. And then you've got the neutrals that really help take the painting away from just being a fluoro, bright pink, floral, botanical, to something with a bit more depth to it. I often like paintings that are a little bit wild, that are very bright, but also have depth. So it's in those darker and grey, muddy colours that I often find my balance. And in these later layers, I put in a lot more of the neutral colours than I do too many of the bright ones. Here I am still obsessing over that bottom square. I think I move away from that. See, that's a nice colour. That's a nice colour there. Nice neutral colour that I'm bringing in. that I think is needed on the other one. So there, I move it over and I'm just putting some lighter areas to help the composition on these. They're close to feeling complete, and you'll notice that I start moving a bit smaller as I get to a more complete stage. I'm thinking more compositionally now. I'm thinking, now that I can see them all as individual paintings, I'm wanting to get some balance happening between the brights, darks, and lights. And I'm feeling into which direction they might go. It's a light fleshy color that I have there, but it's very opaque. So again, in these later layers, I will be using a lot of opaques, and basically I'm taking away rather than adding. That's how I look at it. Like, what doesn't feel necessary to me? And I know that this is an area that a lot of you get stuck, because there's so much that you love in the paintings that it's hard to let go or to cover over. And it's a good practice to start by letting go of too much. I've done that a lot. I'll go hard on letting go to see how much can I get rid of before the painting actually works. I've got better at it now. I let go of enough without letting the painting go too much. I'm bringing in, that color there looks very orange, but it's actually got quite a bit of green in it. So it balances the other greens in the painting. And I've got quite a hard small brush so that you can see a different stroke in the paint. I wanted to bring in a different direction so that you'll see that I'm working across the painting rather than up and down. And it just, again, helps bring something different that helps the eye when you look at the painting. So I'm quite happy about those last bits of yellow that I put in the top paintings. So I'm getting to that point, other than the one on that bottom right-hand side that I've spent far too much time on. I can see that there's 4 that I really like. So I'm going to move on to highlighting, bringing in a little bit more. Like, often I'll bring in my brightest color, my lightest color at the end. So you see I'm putting the lightest color next to the darkest color to get just that little bit more pop. That's an almost white, what I'm working with there. It's got a little bit of pink in it, but it's very, very light and very opaque. So that's where I've got to in this paint. I'm not quite there yet, but we'll have one more paint on these, and then we'll see where we are at the end of that, and we'll see whether I'm able to recover the 2 that aren't working for me yet. So I hope you join me on the next paint. Please like, subscribe and comment, and I'll see you on part 4.